Dead Candy. Dedicated entertainment for the dead.
We're gonna have ourselves a party.
There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
You set them up and I'll knock them back, Lloyd. One by one.
So the bartender pours him a drink.
And listen, don't worry about a thing. We got everything under control. You do your thing and I will do mine.
Welcome to Slasher's Paradise, Happy Hour of Horror.
Clink, clink, clink. Those are the glasses clinking because it is another installment of the Happy Hour of Horror. Folks, for just a limited time, all apps are 50% off. All well drinks are 50% off. Have yourself a nice little Happy Hour of Horror here with us at the Slasher's Paradise.
Enjoy. This is a very special edition of Happy Hour of Horror. It's all about Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, our take on it. We hope that you guys have listened to all of our podcast episodes about the franchise, whether it was the Friday the 13th franchise or the continuation through the Jason movies. We covered them all, 12 movies.
My goodness, Lance. I mean, what a daunting task that we set for ourselves. We knew we were going to have a lot of hard pressed material to cover, and we were going to be hard pressed rather to cover it all. But I do think that I think we did a pretty good job, and it took a year, but we finished it all.
Yeah, we took a big break, go back to our last happy hour to catch up with us. But it's all about Friday the 13th. It's all about Jason tonight. Covering this franchise was fun, but like Danny said, it got daunting at times. Not every movie is our favorite. We pride ourselves on not being the toxic fans. We don't want to shit on everything, or shit on anything at that point. But comparing movie to movie, we got through the whole franchise.
We did.
We had our favorites. We had our lesser than favorites. And we're here today to talk about our recap of the franchise, the future of the franchise, and some news. And we also have a special guest for the first time coming to Happy Hour of Horror. We'll get to that in a minute, though. Danny, is there anything that we left on the table for the franchise besides Freddy versus Jason? Because we are going to have to do another episode for that. Yeah. Once we come back to Freddy and tell his tale of the tape. Yeah, so to speak.
That was still a very fun episode, Lance. I had a blast doing that with you, covering that movie, which, it's tough because we were just trying to have a not more than an hour, but obviously we went over episode of just talking about the film. I could only imagine what the filmmakers had to go through to get something on screen that would pay the right respects to each property. So yeah, I do not blame them whatsoever for all the stuff that they must have gone through to just get that off the ground. Kudos to them. Just us being able to talk about it because we are fans of the franchise of Friday the 13th, which we just covered. I'm definitely a fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I know Lance is as well, but I might be a little bit more rabid in that sense. But to be fair, folks, we both recognize how important they were, and I think Lance is exactly right. We didn't want to overkill it and talk about every nook and cranny with that movie, even though it felt like we could. And that just it's weird because I feel that with a lot of different movies, films, whatever, horror installments of whatever that we cover here, the ones that we may have had a piece of ourselves kind of glued to, or maybe we grew up closer to it, or we saw it at a formidable state or stage in our lives. Yeah. I think Freddy vs. Jason was one that I for sure watched that movie ad nauseum. I watched that movie so many times. You told the story about your dad getting it for you, but the truth is that it was very important, I think, to us when we saw it. we respect the franchises, and the fact that they clashed was so important that yes, we do need to talk about it again. There was so much left on the table. I felt that I would love to talk about that movie.
And that movie in particular, but is there anything else from the franchise? I mean, I know that the soundtrack from 7 we didn't get to talk about, and you really love that.
I really do. I mean, like the soundtrack from Friday the 13th, 7, The New Blood, where if I may walk back a little bit, it might just be, I think I may have come off a little too harsh on 7, and I don't feel that way about 7. If there's any one movie in the franchise that and if I'm saying one that I really just hate and do not like, it's my Halloween Resurrection. It's my Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Matter of fact, it might be just, if I have 2, it's 5 and Jason Goes to Hell.
Okay, yeah.
But 7, I don't feel that way about it. Like, I don't, because there is a lot of cool things about 7, particularly something I don't feel that I talked about enough in that episode, which was the score, the soundtrack, it was an accompaniment from the guy we know to have done all the scores, Harry Manfredini, but also another composer who did fantastically with this soundtrack, and it just reminds me so much. And the other composer is Fred Mullen. It reminds me so much. Lance pointed it out when we were listening to it. There's a little bit of Tubular Bells in it. I hope we don't get copywritten or anything, but that's just a little piece, just a little taste.
It reminds me of the vibe from 6. We kind of talked about the gothic horror, that it kind of fits with that.
Think about that soundtrack on 6 instead.
And 6 didn't have a bad soundtrack.
No.
But it fits that movie so well. I think about the graveyard and Jason being resurrected, and like that would have worked really well in that shot and those scenes.
That particular moment is Tina Summons. So, I mean, you could see her head shaking. She's doing that face thing where she's trying to use her telekinesis. And that's the moment where she's, summoning Jason, or at this point, she's also summoning she summons her dad to take Jason down, whatever the case may be, where she's fighting, where she's summoning her powers. That's the sound that accompanies it. And I love it. It adds so much more supernatural sense to it as well. But I felt like once I went back and watched it again or listened to clips here and there, that specificness of the movie, the score, the soundtrack, I love.
It was pretty amazing once you actually played it for me. I think you sent me a video or something with it, and I was like, oh, right. We didn't even talk about that. There's nothing that I can remember that I left on the table, but I will say, getting towards the end of the franchise, we watched all the movies. When you go all the way back to the beginning, you almost forget about the charm of the first movie, the way it was shot in 1980, and the darkness of it. Again, semi-charming in a sense of it's just the beginning of this huge endeavor that took place, and how big and how far the franchise went away from where we started. It's kind of like a humbling, oh, right. It was just so bare bones and fun in the beginning, and then it got out of hand.
It definitely did. I think that's what 2009 versus 1980, if you want to compare the beginnings, essentially. You got 2009 is trying to start the franchise again. And then 1980, it's just there's this, you're right. There's a charm to it. There's a sense of brand new, scene, fun. There's a lot of fun. You could tell that there's care. The filmmakers are having fun. The behind the scenes are definitely having fun. And then fast forward, you kind of see that there's a lot of I don't know if there's just the weight of the franchise itself is maybe weighing too much on them, so that there was a little bit more there was less fun
just
to be had.
It, yeah, you know what I mean?
That's it.
Misinterpretations of what worked and why it worked.
But I think this is as good a time as any, Lance, to try and see if we can finally say we have talked about the entire franchise. All of the chips are down. It is finally time that we can legitimately figure out who our favorite final girl is for each of us in the franchise.
I think we've already said this. I don't think there's anything that will change our minds.
I mean, I think we were always saying one for you and one for me that were different, but now we can finally say, like, okay, now there's no other mix, like there's no Rowan from, Jason X. We hadn't done it at that time. There's no this, there's no that. For me, it is definitely going to be Trish from Friday the 13th Part 4. She is my favorite final girl, with Ginny as a very close second, but that's just for personal reasons. But yeah, I would just, my wife dressed up as her for a Friday the 13th party, and it was really cool, So, but yeah, as Ginny. But yeah, Trish is my favorite final girl.
Mine is still Chris from 3. Just 100% cute and had a crazy backstory that could have been way worse, but there's a charm, a fun, like she's a fun final girl. Like I can actually, you okay over there? The happy hour's kicking in,
peering over the microphone at Lance.
Yeah, Chris Higgins is my final girl of the franchise. I think she just encapsulates can't speak right now. Encapsulates the Jason final girls, the Friday the 13th final girls.
Yeah.
She just kind of has it all. She's likable right up front. She's a good girl. She's got a past. She's got a history with Jason. And she brings it at the end,
Would Part 3 then be your favorite of the franchise?
Yeah, and it happened again at the end where we're like different classes. So like the original, we both gave 5 stars to, but 3 I gave 5 stars to, 6 I gave 5 stars to. They're just on different kind of tiers or levels.
Sure.
But 3 is my favorite, my go-to of the franchise.
Yeah, well, 4 is mine.
Yeah,
I love the final chapter. I love it for a lot of reasons. Corey Feldman, Crispin Glover, Trish, the look of Jason, the finality of Jason, the poster. It all. There's so much that I love about Part 4, but 3 does kick it to, takes its place on some years that I'm feeling a little bit more towards 3. 3 and 4 like alternate a lot for me.
Yeah.
But for most of my life, 4 has always been my favorite.
Yeah, and 3, I just love the cast. You got Shelley in there. The whole cast, everything about it is my favorite. It hits on every level for me. The kills, the introduction of the mask. Whose opinion I would really like to hear
what
about the franchise.
Okay,
is our special guest tonight. Do you want to introduce him, or shall I and bring him in here?
Well, I'm very excited, to be honest with you. I'm trying to contain my excitement for this very special guest that, quite frankly, I have been trying to get onto the podcast for a long time, and I know Lance has wanted to find the right moment for him to join the Slasher's Paradise, and what better time than the happy hour of horror. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great honor to introduce to you the one and the only Raul El Ghul.
Hey, Raul, come on in. Have a seat.
Hola, Gulos. Hey, it's me. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is if Demon wanted to get enchiladas that caused his stomach to overturn, where would he get them and go?
Raul, this is actually Slasher Paradise. This is our show. We're going to ask you the questions tonight.
Yeah,
You're our guest.
Yeah, man. You just got to... You don't have to do the interviewing. We're gonna interview you, okay? So you take a chill.
Okay, a chill. I don't know about chilling, but okay, the Slasher's Paradise. Con razón, I could see. It smells very pumpkin-y in here, and there's okay. So I'm like living in a pumpkin's butt. I like it.
Okay, that's one way to put it, Raul. Thank you very much. I think that's a compliment for us.
Of course.
Okay, so Raul, we're talking about Jason Friday the 13th. What is your favorite Friday the 13th film from the franchise?
I'm going to say, and this is probably controversial analysis, okay? And this is a controversial nation, but I like to live my life in the fast lane, okay? Hey, if I'm in the carpool lane, don't even look inside because I'm by myself. Okay, so my favorite is going to be Jason X.
What was that?
Jason X.
Okay, so for our non-Spanish speakers, what movie was that?
Oh my God! Hey, it's called like Duolingo. Okay, ever heard?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't taken it yet. I failed Spanish in high school.
Lance, it is Jason X.
Jason X?
Jason X is my favorite of all the franchise, and I'll tell you why. Because never in my life have I ever seen jelly bean nipples.
Okay, so you're talking about KM's magnetic nipples.
I don't know if it was KM or KY, but if it's jelly, it's jelly beans.
Okay. Wow. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say Jason X is their favorite Jason Friday the 13th film.
Well, that's actually pretty cool that that you would think that, Raul.
I know.
Well, but the truth is that, you know, there's so many, you don't even want to like think about the rest of them.
And let me tell you something, Denny. And the reason I don't want to think too much about what I am saying here, this is because I like to shoot from the hip. And if somebody was shooting around me like KY jelly beans, I would be very aroused. So kudos to her. And Jason X can be my favorite for all the time.
Hey, no judgment here from Slasher's Paradise. It's all love. I have another question. If you could ask Jason Voorhees one question, what would it be?
Okay. Mira, porque I'm not gonna talk a bunch of shit. Danny.
Oh, okay. You listen to the show, I see.
Thank you, Raul. That's actually my line, so please
He's taking over, Danny.
Yeah, but that's okay. I feel an odd connection to Raul.
Hey, man, don't hate the player. Hate the plain peoples.
Okay.
I don't know too much of the American sayings, pero anyway, aquí va. If I were to ask Jason any question of all the times, it would be, oye, Jason, why are you so mad?
Okay.
Why are you so mad? Is because you can't swim? Is because your mom is wearing the sweater and you want her to maybe not be wearing that sweater that is a turtleneck? Jason, why are you so mad? Can you swim? And have you ever thought, maybe not a hockey mask, maybe I just take a nap forever?
Okay, I think it's because the camp counselors like knocked her head off or something.
I don't know too much about what the camp counselors were doing. Es más, I never went to camp because Mexicanos, we don't like to practice being poor.
Okay.
I don't want to go out in the woods. I want to go into the air conditioning wall unit. And I want to put the foil paper on the walls and on the windows so that no sun can peer through. That's me. That's how I do it.
All right. Straight from the dungeon. I think you just answered my next question, which was, do you have any camping tips? So I guess I need to throw it to Danny if he has any more questions for Raul.
Well, you know, Raul, it's actually very nice to have you here. Your unique perspective is very
absolutely
refreshing here in the Slasher's Paradise. I guess to you, Raul, who do you think won the matchup between Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees?
Oh my God, that is a good question. And let me tell you something right now. I am not going to get stuck in the political war. I know that there is the one side versus the other side. There is Jason versus El Freddy. Pero for me, if I'm watching this movie, I don't think it was a fair fight.
Okay.
No, Lance. I don't think it was a fair fight, pero es porque it wasn't because Freddy had the odds stacked against him. No. It was because Jason had a black head that he couldn't pop the whole time.
Oh my goodness. You're so on Danny's side. This is ridiculous.
Hey, mira, look, that is not the Jason I grew up with, okay? That is the Jason that is walking around and he's looking like a stupid head, okay? And it is a black head, eh? So maybe use some moisturizer.
All right. Danny, you have any more questions for Raul?
Honestly, I just want to say thanks, man, for being here. I know you look cool. What's the basis of your makeup? Like, what's the choice here? Or where did you get your your inspiration for the makeup you have on your face.
What makeup?
Oh, well.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
Raul, where can we find you this October Halloween season?
I'm glad you asked, Lance. It's okay because I'm going to go ahead and make myself be available for any more invites here to the Slasher's Paradise. So you all can catch me here. I'm going to overstay my welcome because that is what I do. And if you would like to look at all my past videos, I am on El Instagrams at Raul El Ghul. Pero hey, let me tell you something. For ghosts hosts, I am probably el mero chingon. Okay?
Okay.
There is nobody out there that looks like me and talks like me and can sing like me and can dance like me.
All right, I think that's pretty
All
much.
right.
Okay, we're going to have to cut the mic.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us in Slash's Paradise. We hope to have you back very soon. Thank you for your take on Friday the 13th. And Jason, please come back and see us soon.
Orale, that was stupendous.
Oh, no.
Wow, he said that.
He really said that. He obviously listens to the show. So,
And I feel like he may have been more in line with me than you, Lance. I'm sorry. Maybe it's a kinship. I don't know.
It's definitely a 2-on-1 here in the Paradise.
Yeah, just like it was a 2-on-1 against Freddy. 5-on-1. Poor guy.
Okay. Okay. We'll get back into that eventually. What I want to talk about now is the future of the franchise. Danny, what would you do for the 13th installment of Friday the 13th? Jason, what do we do with him at this point in 2022? It's been 13 years since we got an installment. What do we do now?
I'm going to tell you, man, it might not even work. It might not even look good. I think the best thing that for where I'm at right now, my mindset, what I want to see, nostalgia is definitely selling. I say you do a direct sequel from one of the Tommy Jarvis ones, probably especially maybe 6. Do a direct sequel from 6, but Tommy Jarvis is played by Corey Feldman. Mm-hmm. Him and Trish are living their lives. Tommy has moments of, is Jason back? Is he not? It's maybe a whole thing where there is something going on at Crystal Lake, and the only person that they can do it, kind of like Halloween 2018. I would love to see something like that, but you bring Tommy, Corey Feldman, to face his fears, to face his demons, like they did with Tina. But I just want to see Corey Feldman get his moment of realizing his character and get Kane Hodder to play an old man Jason.
Okay.
Coming out of the water, or the last time you saw him from part 6. Don't make him, you can make him slimy-ish if you want, but he could be slow and methodical. He could move like the original Jason. So I think it would be fantastic, and you just have this final showdown between Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis and Jason. I think that would be great.
Ooh.
Or
okay.
You just start from fresh. You cast a whole brand new cast and crew, but you don't do what the 2009 movie did. You just start with Jason in his hockey mask, and you just talk about the past as if it already happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Tommy Jarvis version of this, is this modern day?
Yes. I think it's very much... you have to have some trigger that gets Jason to come back to life. Mm. You have to have something, whether it's some sort of someone pulled in on a power cable underwater, whatever the case may be.
To the crotch.
It would be kind of terrifying because at the end of part 6, you see his eyes open.
Yeah.
He's just there waiting, and he senses Tommy, and maybe Tommy goes on his rowboat or something like that, and something like a reflection or something causes him to fall into the water, and then Jason catches a glimpse of him, so it makes him come after Tommy. And maybe something like that. It is present day, but yeah, I want something personal. I would do something like that for Nightmare on Elm Street, to be honest with you, too. Something bringing Heather Langenkamp back into the fold. So yeah, that's what I would do. What about you?
It's funny because I was so hoping to get to this episode before anyone else said this, but Screen Rant just wrote an article about this. Go back to the 80s. Don't give us Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Netflix reboot. Don't give us the Friday the 13th reboot that we just had in 2009. go back to the 80s, make an old school Friday the 13th 80s film with part 13 in the title, call it Jason Never Dies, another nod to 007.
Okay.
And do everything that we've always wanted. Do it in the snow. Give us an 80s styled movie, cast everything, make it a retro, not reboot. You can make it a sequel. You can put Jarvis in there. I like Jarvis in there.
Yeah.
What was I had an idea for the Jarvis thing too, where I was like, bring him back. So there's another idea. So since Screen Rant already kind of put this idea out there, I'm like, okay, now the studio is going to go some old fucking different direction. But I'm like, okay, make a retro camp where it's like, hey, come to Camp Crystal Lake for an 80s themed camp summer kind of a thing. You know,
gotta
what I mean?
like leave your phones
exactly
away.
You leave the technology away, so we can kind of get out of the element, even though it is current day, and have Tommy Jarvis go back and make him like make it the Cobra Kai, where it's like he's just out of his element constantly, and that's where the comedy comes from in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And make him like not a camp counselor necessarily, but something. He goes back to warn everybody, like, "What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
I buried this son of a bitch. Don't you dare reawaken him by having sex in the woods." You know, so I think that would be a fun one if you are going to tell it in a modern day. But I think the best bet for Jason, because like I said throughout the whole franchise, is stylized Jason is always my favorite Jason. So stylize the shit out of him. Go back to his prime. Early 80s, and make us another Friday the 13th film.
Yeah, I think that would be so much fun. I think that there is something to be... I just felt like they missed the mark. Okay, in Halloween 2018, I love the idea of the podcasters. I love the idea of them as like a catalyst. Yeah. I love also the idea of the influencers in the Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I feel like 2018's podcaster element was done better. I think that they kind of missed the boat with the influencers for some reason. I don't know. It just kind of felt like hokey for the sense of hokiness, you know. But I think that there's something there. I think that there's something of let's nod to the idea of we are purposefully trying to go back in time, but with, you know, smart takes or smart sort of situations, even though you like remove the technology or whatever. Yeah. Like the people are smarter, they're hip to, you know, certain things if they come across it. They're not just falling, you know, big breasted girls not following in the woods or anything like that. You know, it has to be smart. It has to be elevated, but I think, yes, let's not do the thing like, oh, it's Jason, let me just call the National Guard.
Right, yeah, that's the thing, is like you add tension to the end of the movie where it's like, oh, no, we need to go find our phones. Because everyone's about that, right? It's like, oh, you're attached to your phone, now come have this experience where you can't touch your phone.
Right.
And now everyone's looking for it, trying to call for help because they're stuck in this situation and Jason's chasing them.
Yeah, you make it kind of like the game, right? You got to get out, you got to power the car or whatever the hell. You know?
Like that, like escape rooms these days are still pretty big. It was a big fad, but it's still kind of around. So it's the experience that people are looking for. They want a real experience, and then they think it's part of, you know, what was it, the camp horror or horror camp that we had a few years ago, where it was like you got chased by actual actors and stuff like that, and they could physically touch you. So
that must have been fun. I mean, like I've always wanted to, like I was like, man, could I do something like that, like at the ranch or something like that, or, you know, create this whole like experience where folks would, you know, be able to go and set up a camp. And it's like, just be aware that, you know, we're going to try and make this as, you know, immersive as possible.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of fun still, you know, about something like that.
As far as the future of Friday the 13th and the 13th installment, there seems to be some movement.
There's a rumbling underwater.
There is, absolutely. Some bubbles are coming up. So Roy Lee, producer of several horror films, Quarantine, Strangers, The Grudge.
Ooh, Strangers.
Recently was on Bloody Disgusting, discussing some future projects. You like that?
Yeah.
And Friday the 13th came up, and he basically put out a big teaser saying, yes, some news might be coming later this year. And that's all he could say.
Look, they have arrived at a judgment in the lawsuit. They have arrived somewhere. I think the judge encouraged both sides to figure it out.
It's the same deal as we had in 2009, essentially. It's
Right.
one side has Friday the 13th, the name and the characters from the first movie, and somebody else owns the rights to Jason. But the other interesting part is, the app Cameo.
Okay.
Sean S. Cunningham put in his little bio, coming soon next year or ready to shoot next year, Friday the 13th, the 13th installment.
Jesus.
So there's
These old school producers, man, sometimes they can't help themselves.
seriously, like, it's coming out in like little, like, something's and now there's a million articles about it within a week because we are so hungry for it. And so one thing I've said about Jason is he's the one that can make the statement on whatever culture we're in at the moment. He tried to do it with Leatherface recently.
Right.
It was a little forced.
Yeah.
It didn't work quite well. There was moments again, but
There were moments. If I can just jump really quick off of Jason and just talk about if we're starving for another Friday the 13th, I'll say I'm famished for another Nightmare.
Wow.
Because I'm still okay with let's get this old man story, this old woman's story, and the Nightmare franchise is in a bit of a different holding pattern because the rights have reverted back to the Wes Craven estate. So his family owns the rights right now, and they were listening to pitches. And last thing I heard is that Elijah Wood and his team had pitched to the Craven estate.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it seems as though the last thing I heard was that Jason Blum from Blumhouse recently did an interview and said that he would love to do one. He wants to do one. And that if he would do one, he would get Robert Englund to come back. And they said, well, Robert has been very adamant about not returning anymore. And he says, oh, I'll get him back. I got Ellen Bernstein to come back, and she's 80-some years old, he said. Ellen Bernstein, by the way, folks, if you all aren't aware, played Chris McNeil in the original Exorcist, is coming back for their direct sequel to the original Exorcist. It's a direct sequel, and it's kind of like Halloween 2018 in the sense of they're going to be getting some of the old characters back. So I would love to see that. Do the original Peter Jackson Old Man Freddy script for Freddy's Dead. That would be a lot of fun because how cool would that be? You don't have to have Robert do a bunch of crazy stuff, even though he made like an appearance on the Goldbergs recently as Freddy in full Freddy.
What?
Yeah. That's the last, the most recent time. And Robert is Robert is the best. He's an artist, and he owns this character. Jackie Earle Haley tried to play him, and that's not a knock on Jackie Earle Haley as a actor. Yeah. It's not. It's just it was a bad movie. It was a bad script to begin with.
He was so capable to play that role, and they did nothing with him.
But if we're gonna speak of the last tie-in, Robert Englund has said, "No, I'm done with this character playing Freddy Krueger. But if I could have someone take it over." He would like to see Kevin Bacon be Freddy Krueger, who is from the original Friday the 13th.
That's a really fun tie-in. What I will say about those two options, Elijah Wood said several years ago that he would love to produce a horror film that is considered for the Academy Awards. So I think that's exciting. I think he has something up his sleeve down the road eventually I know that he's producing a lot of stuff right now, but him taking a crack at Freddy and getting the budget that Freddy always had, that could be insane. That could be a really cool prospect.
Well, that's the thing is that the rights to Freddy are owned by the Craven estate, so no studio owns it. So a studio would have to go in on making that commitment. But honestly, I'm starving for another good Freddy. I honestly would love to see one way that you can send Robert Englund off into the sunset. Although New Nightmare was good and a nice final performance as Freddy, give him one more. There is so much you could do with him as like an older, weathered Freddy Krueger. It would be so much fun. It's so interesting. But I'll also say is that a lot of what is appealing to me for these last installments is being able to hand it off to a younger generation. So what you did in the new Stranger Things is that you had Robert Englund come on and show everybody and be this character that wasn't Freddy, but like there was a lot of nods to Freddy in the new Stranger Things, but he was in there, you know? So it's like it would be cool. Let this generation be introduced to the man that is Robert Englund and then go from there. And you could hand it off. There could be like a passing of the torch. They could hand it off to another Freddy or whatever the case may be.
And now's the time. If you're going to do it now.
Because they're kind of doing it with Scream. Because they're going to continue on making Screams, and it looks like they are trying to move away from the Sydney and Dewey and of course Gale Weathers tie-ins and do their own Screams, which is what you can do with Screams and what Screams should do. And I think after Halloween Ends is what they should do with Michael Myers as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
What's your problem?
What's my problem?
What's your problem? What's happening?
That's a different episode. Okay, so just to clarify, actually, the court case is actually over.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what everyone was awarded, basically. So Sean S. Cunningham, to my understanding, now don't quote me, everyone, but this is what my understanding is. Sean Cunningham has the rights to Friday the 13th, the name, and the adult hockey mask wearing Jason Voorhees. Victor Miller, the writer of the original 1980 film, has the rights to basically the origin story that he wrote. So Pamela Voorhees and child Jason drowning, including like Allison and all those characters, a part of the first film, are all Victor Miller's. So now they're separated. Those two camps are separated. So with that, now we know that there is a TV series that is being produced right now. There's, I think it's there's the whole writing issue that's happening right now. There's a big thing with that. So I don't think they can write it right now, but they are in like pre-production. Adrian King is actually a part of that. So there's that. There is a TV series that's coming. It is actually considered a prequel to the original film. Recently, January of 2023, Sean S. Cunningham is working with a writer and a director on 2 new films, and then they are basically writing a new version of the Friday the 13th sequel. And the writer has literally said, I think his name is something Fuller. Basically, he came out and said, like, okay, so I wrote my dream movie to Sean Cunningham. We like where it's going. And so long as both sides can come together, we should get a movie done. And if we can't, we have a plan B for a direct sequel from the 1980 film. Danny, are you following this?
I mean, I am. I just like it seems as though you dropped a bowl. I might be like kind of telling everyone exactly where I'm getting this reference from, but it's such a great reference from a recent movie that I just watched. But it feels like you're dropping a bowl of spaghetti, and wherever the noodles land is the line you're supposed to follow, and they're all intertwined and shit. That's what it feels like. Also, I just think that all of this is unnecessary, if I'm being honest.
And now both sides can actually go and make their own version of Jason or Friday the 13th. Again, I believe, to my understanding, that Sean Cunningham has Friday the 13th the name, but Victor Miller can still write origin stories of Jason and kind of go from. So that was the bomb that I dropped, right? Is their plan B is if Victor Miller does not come overboard with Sean Cunningham and to create the 13th film, their plan B is to do a sequel to the 1980 film that they do not have the rights to.
But a sequel to it is fair game as long as you are not
Sequel,
referencing certain things.
yeah, but they cannot mention the boy in the lake. They cannot mention Pamela Voorhees. All of the characters from the first film gone. Can't touch those. So I just don't understand why the plan B is to do the like the hardest thing. You know what I mean? Like it's just a sequel at that point. It's just Jason killing kids in the forest, I guess, because it's just a weird convoluted thing. It's a weird verbiage to use and to say.
I just have to say, Lance, that I saw something recently that the Sean S. Cunningham was talking on. And first of all, I don't think his hair moves, but the dude has gotten a little bit more age on him. But he just reminds me of this like old school Hollywood producer that's going to take the hardest route to get something done every time. And it just like it's kind of infuriating when you think about it, because like personally, I am not in their situation, obviously, where they have amazing IPs that they're dealing with right now. And it's a license to print money. Let's just be honest here. It's a license to print money, but they are like, they probably already have money. I'm talking about both sides at this point. And there's a thing about like artistic integrity. So that's probably where Victor Miller's coming from as well. But to Sean Cunningham's point, I'm sure he's like, hold on, man. Like, congratulations, you came up with the lore. And it's like it's probably like somebody who's like, if you were the person who came up with the character, well, now hold on now. Remove the idea of John Carpenter being the director of Halloween, right?
Okay.
And then if you see every single Halloween afterward, every single one, what does it say? Based on characters created by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they weren't doing that for Victor Miller, right? They cut his shit at the beginning.
Remember that we talked about this, the 2009 version of Friday the 13th. They cut him out because they're like, oh, it's not a remake, so we don't have to give you credit for your characters. And that's how they got like a Pamela Voorhees in there. Technically, it was a new one, kind of. It was just like so they cut him out basically because they're like, oh, it's not a remake, but then they completely advertise it as one. You know what I mean?
I just don't understand, Lance, how everyone in the entire movie making world, when you're building off of source material that came from somebody else, I don't understand why you can't just pay that person. Yes, okay, let's go ahead and just squabble over like the smallest minutia of details, not smallest really, because you're talking about like Jason, but like, yes, the money maker is Jason in a hockey mask. Yes.
Yeah.
But you don't get there unless Victor Miller starts the origin story. I don't. Right. So sorry about it.
Yeah. So
pay the man.
It's so that's where we are. We're still at this weird intersection. And like the last thing you needed to say was that you're going to make a sequel to a movie that you don't technically have the rights to, even though it is legal and they're literally saying that we are going to make a movie 43 years later. Again, this is like everything these days, unfortunately.
So but let's talk about that. Touch. Yeah, let's talk about that, Lance. What would a direct sequel to the original even look like? You would incorporate Jason as an adult in a mask. Like you can't make a direct sequel to part one and just assume he's going to get his mask, because that technically happens in a whole nother movie. So if anything, you should make a direct sequel to 2.
Yeah. But this is like Halloween 2018, right? Like it's a direct sequel to the first one, and then we completely get rid of everything else, and now we restart. At this point, it's like, are we even going to get a Jason Voorhees? Like, what are we getting at this point?
I don't think that these people are dumb enough to know or to think that no Jason at this point is going to be a wise decision. You got to make a Jason. Now, that's why I think that the TV series I think the story is more in line for a TV series, that the one of an origin story, of a prequel. I think that there's a lot of like depth there, and people will be a little bit more accepting of that, in a TV format, in an episodic format. And, you could just create an incredibly like in-depth stuff for Mrs. Voorhees, and you could show Jason as a kid if you want to, but it really isn't about that. I think it should center on Mrs. Voorhees anyway. But you heard that Adrienne King's going to be involved with it?
Yeah, she actually posted on Instagram that she was meeting with the producer and looking forward to Camp Blood, or rejoining Camp Blood. So really cool. But with what we just said, I'm guessing that this is on the Victor Miller side of things, because this is all based on his characters.
It has to be. I'm thinking Victor Miller is the TV series, and Cunningham is like pure movie,
I guess. But yeah, it's even part of the quote from the Sean Cunningham camp is like, well, the TV series got everyone's interest up, so a movie's got to be in line. So it is, and this is literally something that was decided in court, that both sides basically, now we could basically have two storylines going that are complete opposite camps. We could have the Pamela Voorhees everything, and Jason is still at the bottom of the lake or whatever. And then we can have another side that we get the Jason wearing the hockey mask, but no lore to it.
Listen, I don't think it's necessary to talk about Mrs. Voorhees if you have a grown-up Jason in a mask. You don't need to. It's like Batman. You don't need to show me his parents all the time, every time you show me a movie. Like, we get it at this point, right? I think the same could be said for Jason. You don't have to show me the origin story. You don't even have to talk about his mom or anything like that. Just show me Jason in a good slasher film, and bing, bang, boom, I'm ready, baby.
At this point, yes, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what the quote like kind of makes me worried about. I was like, we don't need to go all the way back. Just give us new shit. I mean, some of our pitches were like, go back to the 80s and just make a new film, put him in his prime, put him pre-zombie Jason. Like, you don't need to touch any of the old content. Everybody knows the story at this point. If you don't, your parents are going to tell you, you know what I mean? Like, there's no reason to touch the origin stories. Just give us more Jason. That's all we need.
And also, we can agree that 80s slashers origin stories sometimes are a little too much for today's audience, a la Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Is he a bad guy? Is he not a bad guy? 5 minutes before the movie ends. Actually, yes, he's a bad guy. Aha. It's like, no.
Yeah. It's very, it's like Disney villain origins.
I hated that. In the original Nightmare, you knew that this dude was a piece of shit. You knew that he was killing kids, molesting kids, and he was the worst of the worst. You knew that from the beginning. And yes, it's a taboo topic. Holy shit. Yes, of course it is. But that made him even more menacing. Okay. Cut to Friday the 13th. The best thing we know is that counselors were out there doing it, or they were making love while my boy was drowning, right? We know that. So, okay. Like, we don't need... I just think lock them in a room, put one a notepad and a pen, and they need to, that's it. They just get them in a room and do not let them out until they come up with a deal that is written in paper. You could have Victor Miller write it because he's a writer apparently. And then they sign it and then move on. Everyone gets a piece.
Yeah. I don't, you're right. It is like very old school filmmaker, producer, kind of strong hand stuff. And it's just unnecessary at this point. Like, you're just going to hold it up for ransom even more, make people more frustrated until these guys pass on, and we'll be too old to appreciate it. You know what I mean?
The audiences are clamoring for it. They're ready to give you their money. Are you man enough to take it? Are you gonna take it?
on that front. So there was a Friday the 13th video game. If we haven't really talked about it before, but the original concept was its own kind of thing. It just was basically Friday the 13th, and then they got the rights to use Friday the 13th and Jason, and the video game was pretty awesome. The whole court case and everything shut down new content coming to that game, which was so unfortunate. And now, because everything is settled, the game is going to get no more support. It's an all online game. It never got its story mode. So now that game is dead in the water. But right before they announced that, like literally the day before, a new Friday the 13th game is semi-announced. We don't know this is a new thing. Like, we don't know what company is taking over the rights of it. We don't know who's developing it. We don't know the story or anything like that. There is just a big announcement that there will be a Friday the 13th game again, another one from a different company. So yeah, we're just kind of all like in the middle. We had some stuff to get excited about, and then it gets kind of taken away from us. So
that's why, yes, it's a big jerwolf, but that's why, Lance, we should love and appreciate the people who are getting they have their shit together and they're giving us great new content. I'll just say they're giving us new content. Great is subjective at this point, depending on who you talk to, but that is okay. Out of all the big dick swingings of the 80s, Freddie and Jason and what, who's the one that's got their shit together and is actually trying to put out and give the fans what they want? What franchise? Your friend, my friend, Michael Myers and Halloween. Of course, that has come to an end, and we're not even going to get into it, Lance. I know we're not going to get into it, but I just want to say you can at least say that at least worked out with everyone acting like grown-ups in a franchise. How's that? Is that safe to say?
You can say that all you want, Danny.
You can't right now say that they all acted like grown-ups. Talking about, they got John Carpenter, all the people who could have said, no, we're not doing this. Everyone said, all right, let's go out there, let's go do something. Everybody gets a piece of the pie, let's make some money. Why can't anyone else? Why can't Friday the 13th creators do that? And Nightmare, geez, don't even get me started.
I would love to have some quality horror out of the end of this instead of what we got with the Halloween whatever the hell that was. So
2018 was good. I enjoyed the hell out of 2018. We've talked about this. I'm not even going to try and talk to you about kills and ends, but what I will say is, as much as I hated kills, I wanted that more than I wanted ends. So there you go. I remember being in ends and saying, can I just watch kills again? That's how bad it was.
At this point, it's June of 2023. I still have not watched ends because kills actually made me laugh out loud at all of the characters, including Michael Myers. So that's where I am on that. And did everyone act like an adult? No, I think everyone cashed in on the final paycheck from the franchise that created them. So that's where I'm at with that.
What's more adult than that?
That is very true, actually.
So sad.
Touche, sir. Touche. Danny, do you have a drink recommendation for our listeners?
Yeah, you know what, Lance? I do, because it is getting to definitely be summertime. Shout out to all our central time zone fans out there who are definitely going through some heat. I think a nice refreshing drink right now is what everyone needs and what everyone should enjoy. So it's going to be non-alcoholic, but it's going to be very tasty. And you can make it alcoholic if you'd like, but just get yourself a nice, accurate ratio of sweetness. Get yourself a nice glass of iced sweet tea, and you could toss a little, a little something in there. I don't know what alcohol liquor, what liquor goes good with sweet tea. Is it like rum?
Rum would be okay because it's sweet. Whiskey would probably be okay, but you gotta be a little careful with that. Yeah, I've actually had a whiskey sweet tea, so that could definitely work. I'm trying to think what's in a
what's in a Long Island?
yeah, Long Island iced tea is what I was kind of thinking, because that'll get you Say good night.
I'll get you.
Which is actually with the way we ended this episode. I think it's something that we need. We need a very heavy-handed drink. My recommendation would be a zombie at this point. It's three.
What's a zombie?
It's 3 kinds of rum, including 151. It's like a light rum, a gold rum, and then a 151 rum to punch you in the head. With fresh pineapple juice, lime juice, and you can put some other juice in there, I believe, but ice it, make it fresh, and it's refreshing and it'll sneak up on you real quick. So
I like that drink. I like anything with pineapple juice. You know that I like. It was like 2 seconds away from recommending a Blue Hawaiian again, because I love a drink with pineapple juice. But yes, I would drink that. I'm gonna order that. Do people know it? Like everywhere? Would they know it?
Should be. I mean, my first experience of it was in Las Vegas. We were just ordering zombies, and I don't remember much of the night. So there you go. Hey.
Sounds good. It sounds good to me.
All right. Well, that is, I think, going to wrap it up. You've got your drink recommendation. We have closed out the franchise of Friday the 13th for now. Got our hot takes, and we know where the franchise sits as of right now.
Cruel, cruel summer.
All right.
Leaving me here on my own. It's a cruel.
You done?
Cruel summer.
There it is. All right. That's Danny. I'm Lance. Happy hour of horror.
Cheers to you all.
Cheers.
Clink.
Clink.
Hey, did you see anything you like?
Thanks for watching Slasher's Paradise tonight. Please hit the like and subscribe button and turn on all of your notifications so you know the next time we post a video or go live.
And if you'd like an audio-only version of the show, search for us on wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. We're on all the platforms. We just ask that you leave a rate and review of 5 stars. And if you don't know what to write in the review section, put a recommendation of a horror movie you would love for Lance and I to talk about.
Yes, and if you'd like to get the full experience of Slasher's Paradise, including videos and audio all together, go to deadcandy.com. That's DEDCANDY, or go to youtube.com/deadcandy. Here's to you guys.
This is Slasher's Paradise. Sorry, I had to work that in.
And I'm going to drink on that.
Blended Canadian.